Is it a dopamine increase and a serotonin decrease?
Drop. Exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so that viewing these images over and over is actually causing a chemical reaction in their brains.
And with that dopamine, what does dopamine do usually?
Makes you feel good.
Makes you feel good. And when you lose the dopamine, that rush, then what happens?
Then you crash.
Then you crash, right? So when you crash, how would you feel after that rush, after that excitement?
Yes.
What's the opposite of that?
Then it's depression. And that's when depression sets in. And so if you're doing that to yourself, I like to try to use analogies for people to understand in their body. So again, if I eat all this chocolate, I'm going to rush, and then what happens? You have a sugar crash, and then you feel lethargic and bad, right? So the same thing's kind of happening in the brain when you're doing this. You're viewing these images over and over and over again. You get the dopamine rush, then then there's this reality set in. I can't, when you're done looking at it, or I can't do that, and so then you have the crash. And the thing about when we're saying that children or teens are concrete thinkers, then in that moment, that feels like they're forever. They don't have there's not a lot of forethought. No. And so then when that feels like forever and they're in that depressed state, then what happens? Then that's when you start to see, and this goes into a little bit different subject.
That's what, and parents, in my sense, how does a parent understand the science behind it, so understand how to get out of that and reverse that process?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So cutting is an issue, and the reason kids cut is because it gives them that endorphin kick.
There you go.
And it sounds it's hard to conceptualize because you're like, that physically hurts. How could you do that? But it gives them an endorphin kick. So now you're just finding ways to get rushes all of the time, and. Really, then it's just so many risk factors. Now we go into then you start experimenting with drugs. What happens?
Why not?
Then that gives you a rush.
It's only one step, and one step from that last step. It may seem a big jump from the kid being healthy and normal, but at that point, that one step for them is just one more step.
Right, and these are, and this isn't like I don't ever want to scare people. I don't want this to be this scare tactic, but we're just talking about risk. We're just increasing risk. So if someone tells you that this is a risk factor, well, if we can mitigate that, why don't we? It's not going to hurt to decrease the risk factor. It is going to hurt if we increase the risk factor.
There you go.